a lot of people are like, why do you need to detox your body? They've heard it somewhere that your body detoxifies itself every single
I've
day.
also heard that. So I wanted to ask you the
Which
same
is
thing.
100% true. You have 5 essential organs that are detoxifying every single second, every single microsecond that you're living, right? Your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, your skin, which is the largest organ of the body, and your colon. They're constantly pushing out toxins from the body. But what happens when they are not working optimally and you have too many toxins that they can process and push out, right? What happens? That's when the toxic buildup starts. And what is cancer or any of these other ailments? It's essentially an acidic body, which comes through with like excessive free radicals or toxins in the body that then come and settle in different parts or different organs in the body, right? And then they start creating trouble over a period of time, both scientific as well as ancient practices, because fasting or detoxifying is not a new concept. If you look at any religion, you will find that it's part of that religion.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Voices in My Head. My name is Yami Radhar. And you know what I love more than talking to people on this podcast is talking to smart people who really know their subject. And Nadia and Carol don't disappoint. Carol and Nadia are the co-founders of Antidote and Vitality Hours. Antidote is India's first functional nutrition and detox brand that introduced the concept of modern fasting for health and plant-based milks to the urban Indian audience in 2014. Vitality Hours by Antidote is an experience-led platform for all things wellness that brings together experts, enthusiasts, and brands in the field of health, healing, yoga, mindfulness, beauty, nutrition, alternative therapies, and more. Nadia has a diploma in integrative nutrition, and Carol holds a diploma in Ayurveda. They have 8 years of experience in the field of health and nutrition, with research and development creating formulations and offering nutritional guidance. This is a good one that you don't want to miss. But then again, I always say that, so you decide for yourself. I hope you enjoyed the episode. So I'm grateful to both of you. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's fun, should be fun.
How did you get into this wellness space? So maybe Nadia can go first and then Carol.
Sure. Of course, like as you would know, perhaps that we started Antidote much before Vitality Hours. So this was like late 2013. It was October 2013. I mean, it was kind of like a soft launch. But yeah, how we got into nutrition is interesting because my mom's a nutritionist. Carol is like a stylist. She has nothing to do with this. I was still working in the F&B space, but more from the point of view of like, I was trying to get brands into India. I was working with a law firm, Italian law firm. So nothing to do with this space, but it was something that I was really into. I think Carol kind of took to it. She was very into the other side of things, slightly more indulgent and, like the fashion space. But I think at some point I always knew that this is what I'm going to, eventually be into, like, the health, wellness, nutrition space. And we really, when we started Antidote, we took a long time to really, research, educate ourselves. Like, I think we researched for about 8 months before we actually started it. And it was from a space of, like being two young girls, siblings, whatever, you are living in the city, you are going to be indulgent, you will be, kind of this high stress, you're going out. We wanted to find, to provide that solution to people, like an antidote to the modern lifestyle. So that's where the idea kind of took off. And I think we were the first detox brand in the country because that was our focus, detox. And surprisingly, the market was, of course, non-existent, but we had a great, like, kind of launch, and we had a great, like, kind of first 6 months because there was so much interest and intrigue around what we were doing. And also we were, careful in how we kind of pick and chose where we wanted to introduce the brand first, where we were having our pop-ups, where we kind of wanted to collaborate and talk about what we were doing. But it was a very interesting first few months because Carol and me were really hands-on, and, we were also like, our family has a lot of history of allergies and autoimmune disorders. So that is also something as a personally that kind of propelled us to look at nutrition. So I think that's how we kind of started out, to provide an antidote to modern living, to provide that one, solution, like that somebody can kind of fall back on, whether it's a few times in a month or once per day, so that they can kind of balance their lifestyle a little bit. And I think we made a concerted effort to always have that interaction with our consumer. So it was never like, a business idea wherein, you've kind of made these guidelines and like now you're out there with a product and you want to have XYZ retailer sell it for you. So we've always had our own deliveries. We've always had our own pop-ups. Me and Carol have actually stood at many and most of our booths to begin with and kind of spoken to the consumer, explain them what we do and, so we've had that interaction, and which is also why we've always shied away from somebody else representing the brand. So I think we're pretty intrinsic to what the brand has to say and do in that sense. And then Vitality Hours was really like a sum of what we were doing with Antidote, because we were in touch with so many other experts. Of course, say like juicing, nutrition, that was our area of expertise. But wellness or taking self-care is a huge space. And there were so many other experts that we knew were doing good work. Social media was just taking off. People were using internet a lot for information. And we thought that the information around health or looking after yourself it stopped at calorie counting. And a lot of dietitians or even nutritionists out there, we noticed weren't giving the right kind of information. And for us, we're doing this out of a place of passion. So we really wanted to, kind of interject and introduce, people who were looking for solutions or who wanted to, kind of step towards a better lifestyle, work on themselves, become a better version of themselves. We wanted to introduce them to these amazing experts that we knew and, we knew were giving the right kind of information. So I think that's how Vitality Hours came about, to really build a community around health and wellness, which did not exist. Mm-hmm. So that's how we started curating, small, intimate events, and it kind of grew from there.
And so, okay, we've jumped the gun a bit, but that's fine. Then I might as well quiz you on Antidote, because I wanted to do a deep dive later. So if you can just step back. So what is Antidote? It is a system of detox cleansing, which involves only drinking certain liquids that you guys have prepared with various nutritional information in there, and it's kind of a detox fasting type of setup. So how does it work, and what is it exactly? If you just step up, what is it at its core?
Carol?
Essentially Antidote is a set of juices made with fruits, vegetables, certain greens, and certain herbs. So we use a lot of superfoods because modern farming has stripped the regular the mineral and vitamin content in vegetables and fruits a lot. So using foods that are very dense in nutrition, things like noni berries, moringa, which is now very famous, but back then no one really knew what moringa was. What was ashwagandha? We started this in 2013. So there was a lot of education involved, like educating people more about these foods and why they are different from, say, a spinach, right? Often superfoods are misinterpreted because they're like, oh, what is this fad of superfoods? Carrots are not superfoods, lemons are not superfoods, but amla is, because it has, almost 16 times the amount of vitamin C a lemon has. So very little quantities of something that give you a whole lot of goodness, that essentially is a superfood. So we always try to infuse some herbal concoctions and some superfoods into our juices. These were very well-rounded and carefully curated recipes. We worked on it for 2 years. As Nadia said, we did our research for about 2 years. My mom is a nutritionist, so she consulted all the recipes. We have them tested out. We did a lot of testings on the kind of demographic or the person that we thought would be consuming them over a period of 6 to 8 months. So there was a lot of sort of work that went into these recipes. And then basically you consume, we have 2 versions. So you consume only juice throughout the day, which is essentially a fasted state. So you're only consuming 7 bottles of juice. But having said that, the fruit only juices, they have a lot of vegetables and greens, so essentially they will not spike your insulin levels or your blood sugar. we've made sure that they are made in such a manner. In fact, when we do our fasted, our liquid until dinner cleanse, we have one juice in the middle which has a little bit of sea salt in it, because a lot of people's blood pressure tends to drop a lot when they're off salt. So that kind of takes care of, that aspect. So there's a lot of little things that have gone into curating the right kind of program that one can do. The other one is where you have 4 juices in conjunction with light meals through the day. And that is for various different functions that require more time, and then a simple detox, right? If you're going for a detox, you just do a 3-day or a 5-day or a 7-day fasted state, and that will help detoxify the body and push out a lot of toxins that have been settled into the gut lining and other bloodstream, etc., and other parts of the body. But essentially, if you are looking towards weight management, or you're looking towards better skin or better hair, or you're looking towards cleansing out your improving your gut health, your gut flora, that requires a longer term thing. And for those, we have what you'd call meal supplementations. So you have 4 juices a day that you have, about 60 to 90 minutes before each meal. And you do that ideally for a longer period of time, anywhere between 1 week to about 3 weeks. And the results were always phenomenal. We never did any marketing. I think till date, we've probably spent all of 1 lakh rupees maybe in all of our marketing stuff. We never put ads out there. It was all word of mouth because it was an effective product. It worked really well. And, the customers came to us. We didn't have to go out to them. So I think that all came from this labor of love, where we really sort of took a lot of consideration and pride into what we were creating. And we genuinely wanted to help heal people.
And do I have to do this in terms of, so let's say I want to try this or get onto this program. Of course, anybody can go and try it and get your pack for 1 day, 1 week.
Yeah.
Is it that I come to Antidote to do this if I have a specific problem, or can I just incorporate it in my healthy lifestyle as part of a monthly ritual that, okay, I want to, once a month I'm going to detox, or 1 week out of the month I'm going to detox? So what is recommended and why would that work?
So I'd say we have 2 set of people, right? One is the kind of consumer that is suffering from an issue or ailment or some kind of discomfort, and they come to you with that for the purpose of healing. And then a lot of other people, like Nadia said, it's about the modern lifestyle. There's absolutely no one that I know that is 100% healthy that has absolutely no issues. It's either a gut issue, or it's some kind of sinus issue, or it's something related to your respiratory system, or just general skin issues because of the kind of toxic environment that we're living in and high stress levels and just the modern lifestyle, everyday lifestyle. So people living in the city, they are facing a lot of health issues. So, once a month, and this whole concept over detoxing the body is a fake thing. So, a lot of people are like, why do you need to detox your body? They've heard it somewhere that your body detoxifies itself every single day.
Yeah, I've also heard that. So I wanted to ask you this.
Which is 100% true. You have 5 essential organs that are detoxifying every single second, every single microsecond that you're living, right? Your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, your skin, which is the largest organ of the body, and your colon. They're constantly pushing out toxins from the body. But what happens when they are not working optimally and you have too many toxins that they can process and push out, right? What happens? That's when the toxic buildup starts. And what is cancer or any of these other ailments? It's essentially an acidic body, which comes through with excessive free radicals or toxins in the body that then come and settle in different parts or different organs in the body, right? And then they start creating trouble over a period of time. So it's not like my body's not detoxifying itself. It's not like, why do you do deep breathing? I breathe all the time, right? There's no way I can live without breathing. But I do deep breathing for that extra sense of well-being and for oxygenating my every single cell of the body, right? You do that for 1 hour a day or 15 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, depending on, and you feel great. It's the same with detoxifying. You're just aiding and helping your body when you do reach a fasted state. And there's enough and more data on this, both scientific as well as ancient practices, because fasting or detoxifying is not a new concept. If you look at any religion, you will find that it's part of that religion. You have the Navratris in Hinduism. You have Lent for Christians, where you have to give up that one thing that is, is a vice. There is Ramadan for the Islamic people. So every single culture has some element, seasonal way to detoxify the body. In today's lifestyle, we've forgotten all those things. We don't really live with the seasons anymore. So, saying things like, oh, why do I need to do this? This is just a scam. This is just marketing. Well, I mean, everything that's marketed out there has a reason and a purpose. Yes, a lot of it becomes misconstrued as you go along the way, but there's a reason why that thing is being marketed, right? Why wouldn't someone market something else that is useless to people? The whole reason is that it works, that it helps people.
They market Coke. It's the highest marketed product in the world, and it's poison.
And it's poison. Yes. I mean, there's no end to something like that. As I said, it gets misconstrued along the way. But if you really look at the historical way of how Coke started, and there's always a reason or a purpose why it started and where it is today. So of course it's going to have its own evolution and journey. And juice cleanses and things were a fad or a trend at one point, but they've been happening since the 60s and 70s. The first cold press juice machine was made in the 1960s by a doctor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was created by Dr. Norman Walker, who wanted to treat himself. He treated himself of cancer through the carrot and wheatgrass juicing therapy, which is what I tried to, I also used it to treat myself of an autoimmune condition. It took me almost 2.5 years, but I got rid of it from scratch. Like I never went to steroids. I didn't take any of the allopathic medicines because they were not helping any which way. And you have to be consistent, and it takes its time. But if you really want to get to the root cause, there's nothing better than food and nature to help you heal. There's nothing else. You can take 1,000,000 pills, but they're only gonna help you feel better in the temporary time being. It's not going to have a permanent solution in your life.
No, I 100% agree. Nadia, go on. You were saying something.
So when you're talking about allopathy and all the pills, etc., if you really kind of see it, it is all symptom based. It's all managing your. So if I have a headache, I'll take a pill for it. Or if I have digestive issues, I take an antacid, which actually kills the acid in my stomach. But your stomach naturally produces acid. It's supposed to be acidic, or else your digestion is compromised. So when you look at nature, you look at Ayurveda, you look at a lot of which now they call they call it like secondary or alternate treatment, but that should be a primary. Yeah, because you're curing yourself, and allopathy wasn't made to cure you. It was made to manage your symptoms. And which is what it does. So if you want to cure yourself of anything, that's why they talk about food, lifestyle, and all of this then comes in with its own, let's say whether you call it superfoods, whether you call it alternate medicine, kind of using all of that to supplement yourselves is really the only way to cure yourself.
No, I 100% agree with what you guys are saying. Also, because I have suffered from debilitating asthma condition from when I was like 2 years old, and went through the whole gamut of medicine, steroids, was on it for a long time until I finally discovered certain things, and I've been able to actually cure myself, and I'm medication free. And I don't do juice cleanses, but a large part of my lifestyle is I'm almost doing a 16-hour fast every day. I used to have a bulletproof coffee in the morning to assist me, but I don't need that. I just have black coffee now. Even I know that's not a pure fast, but so I just have a cup of black coffee, but I'm doing a 16-hour fast every day. And I feel best actually, and I keep telling people this, and I know more people are getting into this program. People are talking about keto is a huge buzzword. And I hope they understand that, I mean, at least with me, I feel best when there's no food in my system any time of the day, right? And obviously, the most alert, the most energy I have, my workouts are the best when I'm fasted. And we're going back to our roots, or where our ancestors came from, is they didn't have a fridge in the morning when they woke up to go and have all these sugary, crappy foods that we have. They used to go for hours and hunt and find the right food. And when they got food, they used to, obviously that food was extremely nutrient dense because there was nothing there. So obviously I'm talking about thousands of years ago. So this is obviously also based on the same system. I don't do juice cleanses because I've never tried it. I will definitely, after this chat, I will
go on your website and pick one of the detox ones and do it, because I can very successfully, I'm able to fast for long periods of time because I've got myself used to it over the last few years. And I wholeheartedly, again, this is it's like, looking in the mirror, because I keep telling people that of course alkaline and acidic, everybody's only pushing alkalinity all the time. I said, but you don't understand. Yeah, your blood pH should be alkaline, but your stomach needs to be acidic. So please don't have antacids. One of the main reasons for acidity is less acid, not more. And this is a message that is not getting across, because and I used to pop antacids all the time because I have a chronic acidity issue. Apple cider vinegar twice a day has just fixed that. So I wake up and I have apple cider vinegar with a liter of water, and with my dinner I have apple cider vinegar, and I don't know what acidity feels like anymore. So obviously I didn't have enough stomach acid. And a lot of people who, I keep talking about this on my Instagram and stuff too. So this has helped a lot of people. And I didn't learn this myself. I learned it from, I follow this guy called Dr. Berg on YouTube. He's huge. And one of his main things is this, acidic and alkaline, and don't just blindly follow that. And, people are swigging alkaline water all day. It's actually bad for you. Unless, maybe you are in a certain stage of cancer and you've been prescribed that, no, you have to be on, a certain pH water for the rest of the day. So this message, I'm loving this, because these are exactly my thoughts. I'm going to definitely try Antidote. And what about, is Antidote picked up like when I go to a restaurant, or I'm not sure if you guys are available, who went to a restaurant last in the pandemic, but like I like to have, I've switched from sugary drinks and stuff to, I love sparkling water. So with my meal, or when I'm feeling like drinking something nice, is Antidote also being, and you may have that data because of, our consumers also having it as, just rather than ordering a juice, which, from one of those packaged juices, which is also poison, it's only sugar. So is Antidote being used as a kind of a recreational drink as well? Do you guys have any information on that? I was just interested to know that.
So, because of the nature of our juices, because they are fresh, they're good for 72 hours only. They are cold and cold transported. So really that detox market with the juices is slightly different from going to a restaurant and then, ordering like a juice and drinking it. But that said, as we speak, we are actually in the process of a lot of R&D, research and development, wherein we are looking at, drinks, herbal infusions that are not juices. So, it makes it slightly more versatile in the sense that it can be your first drink in the morning, or it could be something you drink before or after your meal. But yet it's still like, it's function based. So I think functional nutrition is something that Antidote has really kind of, has been at the heart of Antidote. And that's what we are going to continue to focus on. So we are looking at a few options, infusions that can be perhaps then used at restaurants. But as of right now, with the juices, and also we also do almond milk. So almond milk as well, it's something that can be used, as a tea and a coffee alternative. But right now, because our products are so fresh and so like kind of delivery is our mode of, let's say, that's how we kind of operate. But getting into the larger like kind of HoReCa space or the FMCG space is something that we're only going to start exploring later in this year.
And so one of the challenges is the shelf life because of the freshness, and you don't use preservatives and stuff?
No, there are no preservatives. There's zero preservatives. Like Carol said, one thing is that, of course, it's very, very, I'd say labor intensive. It's not as easy as a lot of other businesses wherein you have one production cycle and then, you kind of go there and you have your distribution and your sales and marketing. We have to market, produce, deliver, like do the whole operational logistics every single day. So it is, it's a little different from a lot of other FMCG products out there. But that said, we want to be able to, hold true to what we started out, when we started Antidote, which is that it has to like, kind of provide the antidote to the person, and therefore it has to be effective. So far there's zero preservatives. It's completely natural and organic, and we're going to continue with that, and kind of producing or like kind of even tampering around with your products makes it a little more complicated, but a lot more interesting. And that's why the R&D phase for us is longer than a lot of other products, wherein you just go and you buy an extract and you kind of put it down there, you put a few preservatives and, kind of it's in the market. So for us, it's a process, but we're really enjoying it. But at the moment, the products that we have are completely fresh, and therefore they're not good for more than 3 days.
And are all the, sorry, Carol, go on. I was just wanted to ask about the organic nature, like are all the ingredients organic or part of them are organic, but just finish what you're saying.
I'll address your question first, which is about organic. So we have contract farming with about 7 to 8 different farmers, and all of it is not 100% organic all the time, because a lot of times you cannot get 100% organic fruit on the season. But the greens and the vegetables, which we think are most importantly should be used organic, are always organic, or 95% of the times they're organic. We usually replace, so we have a lot of seasonal juices. If fennel is not available throughout the year, it's only available during springtime, we will make sure that we use organic fennel during springtime, and that we use celery and parsley and other greens throughout the rest of the year, so that we can source organic. Because when you are juicing, you want to make sure that you get at least chemical free, pesticide free, because you're using it 100% raw. Right. So if there is kind of any kind of residue on it, then you are ingesting that. If you don't have access to any, organic food, then we recommend that you soak your vegetables and your, your greens, etc., in potassium permanganate for about 20 minutes, then rinse them and then consume, or juice them. Going back to one of the questions that you would ask, Nadia, about, our drinks being at restaurants. So that was also never our aim, because our drinks are essentially, each juice, it's about 250 ml, and it packs in about 1 to 1.5 kgs of produce, because it is cold. So, it's not essentially a drink that you have along with meals. It's something that helps digest or process your food better. So you're supposed to have it about 60 to 90 minutes before a meal, so that it produces enough hydrochloric or acid in the body, and you're able to kind of synthesize and assimilate the food better. So essentially, that was never the aim. Also, in terms of what you mentioned about boxed juices or boxed, anything, boxed milk, etc., tetra packing is essentially UHT, which means that it's your food is heated at such high temperatures that it loses any kind of vitamin, mineral content. The only thing that remains is, the protein content or the fat content, etc., etc. So you have no minerals, because they all die. Vitamins are essentially very, very heat sensitive, and minerals a little bit less, but UHT pretty much kills all of it. It's essentially having, you can have it because it has no preservatives or less preservatives and no added sugar, etc., etc., which is what all the labels say. It does have a lot of gums and, homogenizers and etc., other things that do irritate the gut. And plus, it is not really giving your body any kind of vitamin and minerals. So it is like eating something dead. It's the difference between eating something dead and eating something alive. I think when people make that choice, they should be aware of it. I'm not saying whether to have it or not to have it. I think that becomes an entirely personal choice, what the rest of your lifestyle and diet looks like, what your stance is on this. But I think that awareness should be very clear, and it's not very clearly mentioned on labels today. So labels are very, very deceptive, especially in the health space, especially so in India.
And all the bottles are glass, because obviously I'm loving this nerd. I mean, this is like just down nerd valley for me, and I love this. So this is obviously BPA free. That's why you guys chose glass, or was there some other reason to bottle them in glass?
There are 2 reasons. One, of course, like it's BPA free. Food, drinks just taste different when they're in glass. You can have the same thing.
Absolutely, they do.
It doesn't taste the same. And like, Carol is saying that everything that we are kind of putting in there is so nutrient dense. It's so pure that you don't want to we want it to go in that state to the consumer, because detoxification or getting the benefits is what we really kind of we thrive on that. So and the other reason is that we use amber glass. We don't use clear glass. So amber also protects. It kind of protects you from heat and light, which is why medicine is packed in amber, or anything that's heat sensitive, because vitamins and minerals, live enzymes, they're volatile, so you want to be able to do that, so it just protects the product better.
And this sounds like obviously this is just, and I know it because I've seen your branding, I've seen your packaging. I've not, unfortunately, had it in my hand, a physical, the antidote bottle. But I know that this stuff is expensive to do and to maintain those quality standards. So is this is a premium product? There's no, would you say this is almost a luxury product with your prices?
No. I do not think it's a luxury product because it's 200 rupees for a bottle of 250 ml of, like pure juice, which actually would, even if you were to even if you don't kind of make that, connection with us using 1 kg of produce, which then again makes it very cheap. But even if it's just a bottle of juice, but it's pure juice, I do not think it's not it's not for everybody, I'd say. But I do not see it as a luxury product at all.
Premium for sure. Now, I also mean premium as a compliment, not just in terms of affordability.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I would take it as a compliment also, because whenever you're trying to cut costs, there's a compromise on the quality. So we definitely stand for quality. But that said, I'd say it's premium. It's not luxurious, because I think a lot of people can afford,
I think I wouldn't really want to describe our drinks as luxury, premium, mass. I think they come with anyone who is wants to have them for a reason will make an investment in them or will be able to afford them. They're not essentially like something that's so out of reach for people. So I think it really comes to priorities and the kind of consumer you're reaching out to. So for us, we have a very varied customer base. Even though it's only across Delhi NCR, we have people from all kinds of backgrounds. They're not essentially always well-to-do or privileged people. There's all kinds of people out there. There's not everyone who isn't into nutrition. A lot of people are not into wellness or not into nutrition, but they do find that they benefit from this, or they found that a friend or someone else has benefited from it. Even also wide age group. We have even we had a 14-year-old who was, and like we have kids. We send our sugar, like naturally sweetened lemonades, etc., to British schools. So we have kids consuming it. We have 14-year-olds consuming our almond milk subscription because they don't want to have boxed milks. We even had a 2-year-old infant who was unable to kind of process milk, like cow's milk. Was consuming our almond milk. It's that pure.
So I had another question that, so my son is 4 and I'm definitely planning to get some of your stuff and give it to him. So this is totally safe for, what's the process? It's all the stuff is pasteurized, because the way they come from the Indian farms, you do need to kill a certain amount of, bacteria, stuff that's in, if it's, or is it totally raw? And I mean, how is it processed to ensure the safety of the end consumer? Because even if I go to, it's like I have, let's say, an aloe vera or whatever in my garden, you still want to, heat it up or do something, obviously, to not destroy the nutrients, but to make sure that, and we have a particular problem in India because of the sanitation standards.
It's 100% raw. Nadia, you want to? It's 100%.
Like a good example of the aloe vera, right? You want to be able to clean it. So there's a process of cleaning it, and you don't want to process it either. So that's where we are at with the almond milk at the moment, wherein it is, cleaned with the colloidal silver, so it's completely natural. It is not heat pasteurized, but it's soaked. It's cleaned with colloidal silver, and then there's a complete sanitized process of making the almond milk. There's no touching with the hand or anything of that sort, and it goes into sanitized bottles, which again are sanitized with a colloidal silver solution. So in that sense, also we have our products on a routine basis checked for microbial load, which there are products out there which are pasteurized and even in aseptic packaging, like basically UHT packaged in Tetra packs, and they still contain a high amount of microbial load. So when we think, oh, this is packaged, this comes from this company and it's come from America or wherever it's come from, and it'll be safe for us to drink, it surprises you how much bacteria it actually holds. So it's for us, because right now our operation is contained, and we're very kind of concerned with the quality. It's something that we look into it. Yes, it's laborious, but it is, however, raw.
And what about the juices? This is the almond milk, but about the juices and stuff?
raw. Again, we follow a similar process, but with the juices also, because it is coming from contract farming, which is mainly organic, we do not have to use any chemicals to clean the process. But then again, there's no manual touch. It's all done in a way where everything is pre-sanitized, not with chemical sanitizers. So that's something we're again very aware of. But the juice has to be raw for you to get the live enzymes, because there's certain vitamins, your antioxidants, live enzymes, which will die the minute you heat it. And that's why you're cold pressing it. So the whole idea that you're not having a juice in your normal juicer or a blender at home, and why you would get added benefits if you were to cold press the juice in an actual cold press machine and a hydraulic press, is because you get the live enzymes and the antioxidants and all the vitamins that you would get when you actually consume the fruit. And also to add to that, so what, you hear this argument a lot when you even have doctors telling you, like, have the whole fruit, don't have the juice. We get that, right? If you're going to have like a Tropicana, or even if I'm going to juice like 5 apples and drink the juice, I will be getting a lot of sugar. The live enzymes would be non-existent because I'm much centrifugal, like Mixie, or juicer, and a lot of the vitamins will die. I will get certain amount of nutrition from it, but it will spike my blood sugar levels also. So this is stuff that you're aware of, right? When you're cold pressing, that argument does not exist, because it is not getting rid of your live enzymes or your nutrients, but you're getting all the nutrition of, let's say, 5 apples into a form that's much more digestible in your body. So our juice it gets into your bloodstream in 15 minutes straight, because we've taken all the fiber. Now you cannot live a life wherein you're not having fiber in your diet. But at the same time, if you're looking for a detox, or if you're looking for a quick, like, nutritional hit, then this is much easier for your body to assimilate. So you have to know the difference. I think what happens, even if it's with like a keto diet, or with like, fasting, or with juicing, why a lot of people, like, the dialogue kind of gets murky is when people take to an extreme. So if I'm going to go on a keto diet, I mean, now I don't even think keto is that popular, because a lot of people have had adverse effects from it, because your body cannot have only protein. It's not healthy for you to move away complete food groups. So even when you're fasting or doing like a juice cleanse, you're doing it for a short period of time to detoxify, or to get the nutrition, or to get your antioxidants, or to kind of nourish your body. It's not about deprivation, and you definitely can't do that as a general lifestyle, that I'm just juicing and I'm only having dinner. So a person has to kind of get that, and as long as you understand balance and you do what you're told in that sense, it has numerous health benefits.
And obviously, growing up in a household that your mom was a nutritionist, so what was her kind of philosophy, and how strict was she on sugar? And being a relatively new parent, I have to fight tooth and nail with my in-laws, with my parents, with even my wife often enough that, I go mad when he's being fed refined sugar. And, in Indian households, the only love is, mithai khilao, meetha khilao, bacche ko. Or, I don't know, of course, everybody likes sweets, right? Where our primitive brains, we're programmed to go towards carbohydrates because that's the only thing that was keeping our ancestors alive. And you were looking for carbohydrates, foraging for carbohydrates all the time. So naturally, even if you say you don't have a sweet tooth, when you do put something sweet in your mouth, you're getting hugely rewarded. Your brain is rewarding you that you're doing something really good. So how was it with you guys? Was your mom extremely strict about sugar, or what was it like?
So I have 2 young kids, 2 young boys myself. And so I can tell you from my personal journey, I think what you also get your child used to, right? Their taste buds develop accordingly, and there is no upside to refined sugar. But that said, I don't think it's healthy to cut out sugar. So, whether it's like fruits, dates, natural sugars, jaggery, because sugar is actually soothing for your nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
And also, yeah, it is like, so if you'd actually see repercussions if you cut out all sorts of sweets. I mean, of course, please cut out refined sugar by all means. White sugar is good for no one.
I'm talking about refined sugar more. Like I have a problem more with refined sugar.
okay, us growing up, I think Carol has more of a sweet tooth. I don't. So I think she did have decent amount of sweets when she was growing up, but our mom has been decently strict with us. We weren't, we were never given junk in our tiffins. We weren't allowed to eat out too much. We were always kind of encouraged to have sweets made at home. That said, we were rewarded, which you need to, to a child. And I think balance is really the key. Deprivation.
But there's no doubt that especially refined sugar is extremely addictive, and the sooner you introduce this to your young kids, the sooner and you're making life for them as adults really hard, because that association remains. I know most people I know are hooked onto sugar, including myself. I have a huge sweet tooth, but I have to really control myself and manage that. And when I tell people who don't know me from them that I used to be close to 100 kilos, is because not just because I was on heavy steroids and stuff for my asthma, is because when I was studying my undergrad in London, I could do a dozen Krispy Kremes in one sitting. I used to do a dozen glazed Krispy Kremes in one sitting. So that's 12 Krispy Kreme donuts. And this is like, I'm like one of those obese American kids. There's no difference. And that's because perhaps my parents were not as strict with me when I was a child, and they should have been, which is, and I know that this isn't great for my son, because I've become extreme about all this stuff. I don't want him to go through the ailments that I went through, and I don't want him to have that association with sugar. Of course, rewards and stuff, that's great. Who won't like a good treat? But you can prevent your kids from getting addicted to this stuff, and at least teach them that there is an alternative. You can have jaggery. There are other things, and of course, fruit, not fruit juice. And fruit juice is obviously there's no difference from people who think juice is healthy. I mean, you might as well have a Coke. Reward yourself fully then. Just go ahead and have a Coke, because there's no difference, in my mind at least.
Okay. If you're having a fresh fruit juice, it's definitely better than Coke.
Yeah. Also, sure. Okay, I'm not arguing that, but I'm saying people think that Tropicana is really healthy for you, right? And real fruit juice, that, no added sugar. It doesn't mean anything. It's your liver is straight away going to overdrive to convert that into, if you can't burn it off, which most people can't, it's and especially for young kids, you're poisoning these kids with this stuff. And that's just my opinion.
I think when you're young kids, really, sorry, Carol, why don't you first?
I just think like we've overcomplicated our lives too much with, so many kind of, it's over information without much context to it. Like, we are constantly counting calories, we're counting our carb intake, we're counting our protein intake, etc., etc. But if we just look at it as simply as trying to eat as much real food as possible, not things that come from packets, eating according to the season, and just trying to get more of that into our life, I think our troubles would be a lot lesser, because naturally occurring sugar, every single food, like say, for example, you take dal, you take lentils, right? Someone will be like, oh, it has only 14 grams of protein, whereas the chicken has 38 grams of protein or whatever. And you're constantly looking at it, you're breaking down the numbers, because that's how your mind can assimilate information better. But in the real context of things, you're not thinking of the amino acid content in the lentils that helps you absorb those 14 grams of protein. I think it's even less, it's probably 8 or 6 or 8. But what I'm trying to say is that when you have a food, like a naturally occurring food source, there are so many other, it's a holistic blend of vitamins, nutrients, amino acids, etc., that help you process or make that protein available. When you have isolates and things like that, like protein powders, etc., which I'm not saying I'm against, but I'm just giving you a context, your body is not getting a complete, you're just having a protein isolate. Your gut needs to work a lot harder to make that bioavailable for your body. It's the same. So if you're going to get into the scientific aspect of it, then you really must understand and study it very holistically to see, do you need vitamin C to make sure that spinach is more bioavailable? Do you need to have, how much amount of amino acid do you need to have with your protein to make it more bioavailable? And if you get into that, you're going to constantly be thinking about that all the time before you eat, which kills the whole aspect of intuitive eating and mindful eating. I think a large part of what we forget when we are talking about diet and nutrition, unfortunately, is very dispassionate to how you're eating it. What is your mental state? What is your environment like? Are you eating it with love? How is it prepared for you? How is it grown for you? We're forgetting those very basic things that I think our generations before us paid a lot more attention to. The timing that you're eating it. Are you eating it with family? Are you eating it with consciousness and love? Or are you eating it in front of a screen? Not really. And then it doesn't matter if you're eating spinach or you're eating chips, looking at a screen and just not even paying attention, not chewing it. And you could be eating maybe not the greatest meal. You look at so many, like, say, more underprivileged parts of India that literally survive on dal, chawal, and some horribly refined hydrogenated oils and all kinds of stuff. They literally cook their food in kerosene, and they're perfectly healthy. I mean, they're perhaps a lot healthier.
They're fitter than us. They're fitter than us.
Because there's so many other things that are going right for them. So I think it's like everything else, it's easier to simplify than to complicate ourselves so much more. I think everyone should just choose what aspect they want to go with. And I completely agree with you on refined sugar and the addiction that has become chronic in our generation, because there are hidden sugars in everything. You don't know when you're consuming that sugar, right? And from what I remember in my childhood, I used to consume a lot of sweet, and my dad always used to tell me that diabetes runs in our family, and you're gonna get it all the time. This thought remained in my mind. At the back of my head, at one point, I was like, I cannot, because my dad would constantly keep telling me, you're gonna get diabetes if you eat that sugar. It was annoying as a kid, but I'm glad he kept telling me, because it made me more and more subconsciously aware that I cannot overindulge beyond a point, because I'm risking something that I have seen other people suffer very acutely from.
I really like your message of, let's not overcomplicate our life. Let's try and stick to eating as real as we can. And I know that's hard. It's easier said than done, especially in maybe a place like Delhi, where your lifestyle and you're so busy. When was the last time you really loved your food? Or when I say love it, I paid that respect in terms of almost a spiritual aspect. Because you're right, I think for our parents and the generations before that, there was a spiritual aspect to food, because of how hard it was for you to have to work to get a square meal or to get a good meal. And you touched upon that. So again, I'm all the food in my house, I try and tell them, cook everything in ghee. It's not, ghee is really, I don't know where again this message came on from, that ghee is really bad for you, and sunflower oil and all. It's just easy to, and it's cheaper. Ghee is much more expensive, at least what I understand, than getting that 5 liter or 10 liter jerry can of literally like petrol. And for a long time, I think everybody's houses used to just cook in that. But everything, I tell people that cook in ghee. So you guys are also on board with that idea that ghee is good for you, and try and cook in ghee in a controlled fashion.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, ghee, if you really study Ayurveda, it's the only fat that goes right down to like your seventh tissue. That's why a lot of women post-pregnancy are advised to have ghee. And from personal experience, you do not put on weight if you're having the right kind of ghee in the right way. That said, ghee is great to cook in, but you can also cook in cold pressed, like possibly organic oils. There are lots of oils out there that are good for you, whether it's peanut or sunflower, or sesame is a great oil, mustard seed oil for frying. If you're frying, or if you're cooking stuff on high heat, then it's something that has a high heating point. So, you can enjoy various kind of, mediums of cooking. Olive oil is definitely not for high flame cooking, because everybody who thinks they need to be healthy are like, let's eat olive oil. But it has to be extra virgin olive oil, because if you're having a pomace oil, it's as good as having any of the oils that you mentioned, which are your refined oils. And then that is good for, just your stir fries or putting over a salad. Ghee is very, very, so ghee, when you're cooking in ghee, it's great. But also, if you're cooking a little bit more simply and kind of putting the ghee on top, you get the added nutritional benefit of having that raw ghee as opposed to just cooking in it. Also, I think when it comes to really kind of, connecting with your food and all of that, also, since you were talking about kids, I think the best gift you can give your child is to develop his, food palate. So let him recognize, a vegetable for a vegetable, a taste from one, like one flavor from another flavor. Because a lot of times what I hear a lot of other moms talking about is, oh, I want to sneak vegetables into my food. But why should that be the case? Why is everything, hidden in a pasta or a cheese or like, something else? Because when he or she can actually taste something, of course they'll decide they like some things and they might not like some things, but they should be able to taste what jaggery tastes like, or what a beetroot tastes like, or like what peas tastes like, because then they will understand the flavor and they will be naturally predisposed to having, making the right food choices later in life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, the sneaking nutrients into the kid, it should be the other way. Actually, it should be that you don't have to sneak anything. They should love it, and the only way you'll really know is if you give them stuff individually, including Karela and everything.
So
I wanted
it's
to,
Nadia's older, like my older nephew, Sikandar. He hates cake. Okay, maybe that's just how he was born, and that's his palate. The other one, he hates cake. He loves grass. He loves spinach. He loves Karela. He's always, maybe because when we were young and we would, when he was young and we were starting our antidote, we used to keep giving him stuff to try. So maybe he loves celery. He loves rocket. Sometimes it's bizarre to me how he likes all these things, because these are not things most kids like, and they have a very kind of different sort of like taste. But then that's I think familiarity and making sure that your kids get a wide range of different things that they're eating, they will eventually start liking, even if how you said, like refined sugar. What if you start giving, the more shakkar or coconut sugar or honey or agave or whatever it is that you want to replace the sugar with, or dates or whatever. Once they start liking that flavor more and not that intense sweet that actually doesn't have any flavor, then they will just automatically stop liking all those crazy dessert like Oreos and stuff. I don't know. Like Sikandar wouldn't like, he doesn't even like that kind of flavor anymore.
I want to keep discussing this, but I also want to move on to Vitality as. But I have a couple of, I don't want to move away from this topic. Do you guys have an opinion on stevia and how to use it safely? And
okay, stevia. That's another thing. This is it's interesting that you asked about stevia, because stevia, of course, it's like an alternative to sugar, low calorie. But if you're having natural stevia, it has an aftertaste, which most people don't palatable. So now what has happened is, of course, industries come in, they process the stevia. You have these sachets that are lying everywhere. Everybody suddenly knew now, of course, refined sugar is not good. And your aspartame is not good. So let's, we have a new thing to market, and that's stevia, but it's still processed. So you see, if you're having sugar cane, it's not bad for you. It has minerals, of course, in moderation. You made sugar from sugarcane. There are many other processes in the, from sugarcane to sugar. There's jaggery, there's shakkar, which is all good for you in moderation. And the same happens with stevia. So if you're having stevia, great. It's a great like alternative to sugar. But if you're having your processed stevia, then it's just perhaps a slightly better evil. I don't think it's particularly good for you.
So the stevia that we have in our house in limited quantities, and of course the stevia that was coming 3-4 years ago was really, you'd rather not have it. And now I managed to, and I don't know, I actually haven't done a deep dive, but I just trust the brand. So I get the Organic India stevia sachets, and they are really good. Of course, there is a very mild aftertaste, but I am guilty of having maybe one sachet a day of that, and maybe some sort of a nimbu pani or something, rather than even putting any alternative. Or it's just easier to mix that in than to mix honey or one of those. And of course, you're totally guilt-free in a way, because it's 0 calories. So I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that particular brand, but because I use a lot of their stuff, including Moringa, Shoringa, and I just like Organic India as a brand. So their stevia seems to taste good. I do note your point that, again, this is getting into the territory of being highly processed, and they've got something new to market as a health food or as a substitute to sugar. So that point is noted. One more question before we move on to Vitality Hours is any opinion on RO water? And this is something I don't get a clear answer from, except one of my friends who's like an expert on water, but he refuses to come on the podcast. So do you have any info on that you'd like to share?
So RO, okay, Carol, do you want to share something?
Okay, so basically when we talk about RO water, I think most of us know that it has very little naturally occurring vitamin mineral content in it, right? Which I guess in the urban scenario, what else are you going to do, right? Your water is so dirty. If you have to clean it and make it like consumable for you, you have to do that. Having said that, there is a Japanese water filtering machine which is quite pricey, so it is, I would call it a luxury thing. It's called Kangen, and people who are interested or can read more about it. And it uses a carbon filtration process which does not strip away the essential minerals from it. Having said that, there's some things that you can do to make, even if you're having RO water, to make sure that you are kind of getting some of the naturally occurring minerals, etc. One is replacing your salts. So, like for example, table salt and stuff just doesn't work. If you put even just a little, like a tiny pinch of sea salt, of Sendha Namak, which is Himalayan pink salt, into your water, not just very minute quantity, so you can't really taste it. That helps to kind of change up your water, your molecular structure of your water. Also, shaking water. So water lying still in the fridge is not a very good idea, because water is used to flowing, right? If you really want a live water, and this is what one of these the South African functional medicine doctor told me, that what they were doing in their institute was they were creating a coil right before, because the water lies stagnant in the pipes, right? And that changes the molecular structure of water, because water is used to flowing like through streams, etc. So they created a coil right before it hits the tap, so the water starts moving and then it comes out. So I mean, this is a trick that he told me, that always shake your water. Never have water that's lying in the fridge like for a long period of time. Mineral water, according to him, was one of the worst things you can do for your body, because it's lying still in harsh temperatures in plastic, which is a huge endocrine disruptor. So little things, even little a dash of baking soda, some people do that. Lemon is of course a great thing, that if you can have lemon water once a day. I mean, these are just ways for you to, because there's not much you can do about the water. You can change your water filtration system, you can add something to it.
You can also, when you have your RO machine, you can fix the like you. So it shouldn't be very, very high. You should you because usually what they recommend is a lot higher than you need. Another thing, what happens is, because it's devoid of all minerals completely, there have been certain research which says that it kind of starts taking minerals from your body, and that's where the danger lies. Not because it's dead, sure it's dead, but the fact that it can actually adversely affect your body when actually taking out trace minerals from your body. So I think what Carol suggested is a great hack. If you just put like a small minute pinch of Himalayan pink salt in your drinking water, or if you were to even kind of store it in a copper vessel overnight, don't have it directly your RO tap, just trying to get minerals back in there. Even if you want to like store it in silver, these are good ways and practices. Even if you want to use like a simpler filter instead of an RO, if you're living in a cleaner area of Delhi, it really depends. So maybe
is there a cleaner area of Delhi, or is that an oxymoron? I have no idea.
No, have you have harder water, lower, higher.
I'm just joking. Yes.
So your NDMC is a little bit cleaner. They're pockets. So you can, the idea is that you become a little bit more informed. You check your TDS in your water before, and then you kind of like fix it. So just to be a little bit smarter about it.
Thank you for that. I really wanted to discuss that with somebody on the podcast, and even though it's not in a extremely detailed manner, but we will take away some things from that. One more suggestion which somebody told me is the old style is that those ghadas that you get, the clay ghadas, just put water in that, and that really is good for health, that you just leave it overnight and drink from that. Now, guys, tell me about Vitality Hours. So when did you start it, and why have I not been invited to it? I want to know.
Have you not been invited?
No, I just obviously I knew about Antidote. I didn't know about Vitality Hours because I kind of float in and out of social media. So perhaps that's why I didn't hear about it, or I live under a rock or something.
Like I said earlier, it started out for a need to form a community around health and wellness. There was one that was missing, and we thought there were so many opinions and ideas being thrown out into social media and onto the internet in general, that there was a voice lacking, to kind of give you an anchor point for what could be the right thing to follow for your self-care, for health, for wellness, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual wellness. We just wanted to get a set of experts, because let's say Carol and me, we understood nutrition and Ayurveda to some extent, but there's so much in the wellness space. We wanted to get the right kind of experts and get them together and curate experiences wherein you don't have to be extremely into like a yoga or into fitness or into meditation or any of that, but anybody who wants to kind of dabble and see what is in there for them, right? So you come here, you walk into an experience, you're exposed to lots of different practices. Could be physical, could be healing related, it could be it could be personal development, and you kind of pick and choose what works for you. And the idea is to come and get exposed in a space where everybody's learning with like-minded people, and to be taught by great experts, and to have good conversations, and kind of pick what is working for you and kind of incorporate that into your lifestyle, really. That's where it started from. So it's like it started out from like a smaller curated kind of party to like a wellness festival pretty quickly, and it is just that it's a community, but then there's certain services being offered. Also during the pandemic, we had to take it online. We took it online pretty earlier on, like in April 2020. So we've kind of hosted a host of online experiences / webinars on like Ayurveda, your moon cycles. There's a lot of, information out there if you want to kind of learn further on, different aspects of your physical, mental, spiritual well-being.
The physical event first happened in 2018, 19?
Yes, 2018.
18. And
yes.
Obviously you had to take it online. Now, are you planning to go back into the original format this year? Hoping to?
Yeah, we're doing it actually at a music festival this year in March, like later in March at Magnetic Field. They have this new one, Nomad. So most probably we might have like a small wellness space there, which will be interesting for us to see, how that works in a different format. But soon after that, yes, we want to kind of start smaller experiences, because I think people want to get out, and if it's done in a safe environment, I think there's a take for that, especially at this time.
I mean, even if you don't end up doing it in a big way now, I think something like this, again, like Antidote was required, didn't exist. I think something like this, at least for someone like myself who's super interested in this space and believes that I'm part of this wellness community myself, that it would be great to have a place like that to go, where you can maybe learn new things or meet like-minded people, and also experience it in person, versus everybody's sick of doing stuff online. I mean, we've done that for like over a year now. There's a limit to what you can do online, including this podcast. I mean, I had to move it online, but initially it was all doing it in person, and it's very different when you're sitting across, a couple of meters away from someone having the same conversation. It's more impactful, in my opinion. You connect with the person better versus on a flat screen. So good luck to you guys for that, and thank you so much for the first part of the conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed, because I have not been able to take a deep dive on some of these things which I consider nerdy in my own head, that I'm such a nerd about this stuff, and nobody was willing to or nobody has been able to kind of speak about it, and also in an informed way with a very solid product behind it. So I think a huge amount of my questions, and I guess the people watching would have also learned, like I have learned a huge number of things from you guys, and it's such a pleasure to have spoken to you. And I'm sorry we didn't do this earlier. And so good luck and all the best, and thank you so much once again for doing this.
Well, that was super fun and informative for me. I got to learn so much. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and we'll be back soon with a lot more.
Voices in My Head is created and hosted by Yami Radhar. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. We disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects that may arise from any information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guests' qualifications or credibility. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.